Welcome to Novel Ideas, Chats with Local Authors. I'm Carolyn Luck, and I'm here with co-host Josh Brogadir.
It's great to be with you, Carol. And our guest this evening is Framingham resident with an incredible story to tell, Judy Cadorette. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
We really appreciate it. We want to talk about your book here, and if you could just tell us, what's the name of this? Where did it come from? A little bit of information about that.
The name of the book is Live with Courage, Lead with Hope. And that was our daughter's mantra. She coined that along the way as she spent 14 years with a rare cancer called thymoma and wanted to inspire other people to live with courage and lead with hope.
Yes, I loved, in the early part of the book, you talk about her as a little girl, and she is just so precious. And there's a favorite little piece that I had in the book where she plays Little Red Riding Hood with her grandmother. Would you tell us a little more about her as a little girl?
Yes, well, that picture in the book was taken at our home in New Hampshire, which my parents bought shortly after my husband and I were married. And so Michelle had a good chance, especially in the summer when we were there more often, to be with her grandmother, to play games and to just enjoy her company and do other things with her, feed the ducks by the lake and so forth. And they always loved to disappear and play act and come out in some crazy outfit. And so they decided on Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf. And my mother found a very furry parka that my husband had for skiing, and it was in the closet. So out it came, and my mother dressed as the Big Bad Wolf and was lying on the couch, and Little Red Riding Hood came along with her scarf over her head and a little jacket on, and carrying a basket of apples, a very large basket of apples. And they played the whole scene out with who's been sleeping, Granny, what big eyes you have, right. Granny, what big teeth you have. And at that point, my mother thrust out her upper false teeth and said, "The better to eat you with, my dear." And Michelle got so scared that the whole basket of apples got thrown. And in spite of the fact that she trusted and loved her grandmother, that was a very scary moment for her.
So much of her stories, and this is so rich, by the way, and there's so much here that we'll get into throughout this half hour, but so much of her is about family and about her relationship with her grandparents and also with her cousins. How did they all influence her? How did that really become such a big part of her life?
Well, Michelle was an only child, and she came from parents who were each only children. So we always had to go elsewhere for our friends and family. And as a matter of fact, my husband and I, however, our parents had large families, 5 or 6 in each of their families. So that's how we inherited all of the cousins. And those cousins became Michelle's second cousins. And we got down to 4th cousins at one point, and they called each other 4th cousins every time they met. And so their relationships were very fun, and always a new experience coming along that involved one family member or another.
Yeah, how do you think Michelle's life would have been different if she'd had siblings?
Oh. Being an only child myself, I'm not sure. She had friendships outside, made very close friendships with a number of people, and I don't think she didn't get away with anything. My husband and I both being teachers, she really never got away with anything as an only child, as many people think that only children are all spoiled, and we never felt that Michelle was spoiled. In fact, other people who only met her casually would say, "Oh, I didn't realize that she was an only child," which I guess was a compliment.
I think so, in terms of the way that's said.
Right.
One of the things that shines through in this book are the testimonials and all of the way she phrases things. her sense of humor, it leaps off the page, and just the way that she speaks. Where did that sense of humor come from?
Oh, my mother, my husband's mother, my father-in-law to a point, but the two grandmothers especially. And we had our own twist on the sense of humor at home as well.
So moving along with her life, she chose St. Anselm College, and it seemed in the book to have been such a perfect fit for her. And any parent who has gone through all of the gnashing of teeth with college selections, and now I'm thinking of those seniors waiting for decisions. How did Michelle choose St. Anselm? How did she get to the point of why she was going to go there?
Well, she went to Marian High School here in Framingham. And she had a very strong religious bond with Sister Denisita, who was an institution at Marian High School, and just loved that atmosphere of having the religion and the prayer as part of her day. And so St. Anselm, she applied to a few colleges, and she decided when we had visited St. Anselm that the atmosphere was just what she wanted. I mean, there was no question in her mind that she wanted to go there. The monks were all very open and welcoming. The campus is beautiful. She made many friends there, and continued with a friendship with one of her professors who has become a very close friend of ours since her passing.
Now, I know she was a teacher in terms of her profession, but it sounds like she did a lot of teaching even before she officially became a teacher, and how she helped other people. We've all have a teaching background, at least at one point in,
That's right.
in all of our lives. It requires a lot of energy and a lot of good judgment. But what we're really taken by is how she was able to keep teaching in spite of having thymoma, and not just thymoma, of course, and everything else that she was going through. How did she find that energy to be able to continue?
Josh, I don't know. My husband and I wonder how she did keep going with her. She kept her spirits up. You know, we had our moments when we were alone, and those times when things were really rough for her. But for the most part, she just kept going, and I honestly don't know how she did it. I don't think I could have done it. And as far as teaching, my husband used to say to her, because we were both teachers, honey, don't look into teaching as you're going to school. Look into something else. Look at something where you can make money. Well, that was never her goal in life. Her goal in life was to do what she wanted to do. We were surprised when she actually did end up teaching, and very pleased, because she did she made them toe the mark too, but she did such a good job with the teaching and all, and with the personal relationships with the students. She went to high school, though. She wasn't going to teach the little kids like Mom and Dad did. So she went to the high school level.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, another thing that you and Michelle shared was a love of writing. And you had often encouraged her to write a book. And in some ways, she sort of did in this one, because so much of her work is incorporated into it. But if she actually wrote a book, what do you think she would have written? Like a children's story, or a mystery, or historical things?
I don't know that she would have written fiction. She seemed to want to write about the things in her life, the situations that she encountered. I would say if there were two types of writing that I could have expected her to write, it would be either poetry or it would be something with a comic edge to it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You could really hear the comedy come through in a lot of her speeches, for example. So essentially she did write parts of this book because you included a lot of those messages she had, whether it was a charge to athletics groups or certainly, in her case, graduations. I mean, that's a big commencement. I think as we often forget that commencement really is the beginning of things. And so for a lot of people, she gave them that inspiration. I'm glad you included her words
Yes,
within.
well, that was fully my intent. The way the book came about, however, was an interesting story. She had a hematologist oncologist, was one of her doctors at Mass General Hospital. And the hospital cancer center offered any of the staff a course in writing, if they wished, as something different for them to do, something that would take their minds off their daily work or allow them to express that daily work. So as Rachel started taking this class, she said to Michelle, I think you should write too. And at that point, Michelle had taken long-term disability from school. And so anytime Rachel got an assignment, she would give that assignment to Michelle. And she said, you have to do it too. So a few of the stories in the book came from that experience. And then after Michelle passed away, Rachel was going to write the book. And she had requested that Michelle's friends and family, and she had an extensive email list, so Rachel had her friends send out a message on the email list to ask people if they would share a story or an experience that they had with Michelle,
Okay,
which is where a lot of those stories came about.
Oh,
And so I ended up getting those stories, and I thought, well, now it's fallen to me to write the book, because Rachel at that point was involved with her medical career and a family that was getting ready for college. And so that's when I called Rachel and I said, can I take over the project? So that's how that all came about.
This book also brings to mind a coincidence, and friends of mine and I are constantly talking about strange coincidences. And it wasn't until quite a while after I had finished the book, something was gnawing in the back of my mind. And then I remembered this wonderful Framingham High School math teacher who had also passed away at a very young age of cancer. And I had been at her funeral. And her name was also Michelle Chenard. And it just sort of all of a sudden struck me that there are so many parallels and coincidences in this world. And somehow this also felt like a tribute to her when I finished.
Very nice.
thinking
Thank you
about
for
it and
sharing that.
inspiration.
Yeah, I knew Michelle Chenard from my time teaching as well.
The difference would be, as much as I loved math, and that was a big part of my career, teaching career, Michelle shied away from math completely. So she would not have been a math teacher. She'd be the first one to say so.
All right. Well, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more with Judy Cadorette about her book, specifically Live with Courage, Lead with Hope. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Novel Ideas. We're here with Judy Cadorette, and we're talking about her book, Live with Courage, Lead with Hope.
Yeah, and Judy, thanks so much for being with us. We want to know a little bit more about this book and sort of what went into putting it all together.
Well, there were lots of stories that Michelle had written and shared with me, and email was wonderful because when she gave some speeches, graduation speeches and so forth, she would email them to me, and I, of course, saved them all. And some funny stories that actually took place one of them took place at a very serious moment at Mass General, and she made it very funny. And it's called The Night of the Catheter, so you might imagine. And another one about pillows. And then some poignant stories about a roommate that she had who passed away shortly after she left the hospital, a roommate at the hospital that she'd had. And friends and family contributed stories, and my husband and I had stories to tell. And it all just started happening, so.
Judy, this book has a very different format from a typical memoir or biography. And it's just kind of, how did you come about organizing it the way you did? That would be
Well, organizing is something I really like to do, so that was a good thing. And looking at the table of contents, the first, of course, was an introduction, which seemed logical. And then I wanted to make it Michelle's book. And so much of the writing that's in the book was by Michelle. So I started off with Michelle's stories. And then photo albums is another section of the book, because Michelle loved photography. She loved taking pictures. She loved having pictures taken. When she took trips and did photo albums herself, it was always about the pictures, and then all friends wanted to see the albums that she'd put together. So the two things I chose for the photo albums, in addition to having lots of pictures throughout the book, there were her Mass General family, her MGH family, because they did become family after 14 years of being back and forth. And her disease was called thymoma. And thymoma is a rare form of cancer that affects 1 out of 100,000. Typically, that's what they've said. However, the fact of the matter is that many cases of thymoma are misdiagnosed or go undiagnosed. So it could be a greater number than that. We always thought she was 1 in a million, never mind the 1 in 100,000.
Yeah, right.
And so it affects, it's a thoracic cancer, so it forms in the thoracic area. And her first diagnosis, she was at stage 4. And she had a major tumor on the pericardium and a major tumor on the pleural lining of the left lung. So that was a big surgery to start with. There were 3 other surgeries after that.
So right away,
14
you
years.
knew it was very serious. I mean, right, the first diagnosis.
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah. Well, she had been diagnosed with something that the doctor in New Hampshire referred to as a benign cyst, and it should be followed for 2 years. And after a year of her first year follow-up, he said, I don't think I need to see you anymore, everything is fine. And so it was 3 years later when stage 4 was announced. So that was a tough one to swallow.
About the book,
But-
I was going to say, some of the book is heavy because of the subject matter, of course, but so much of it is very light. And people make a point of saying that when Michelle would arrive places, it would immediately lighten up the room. One of the things that keeps it really light are these Christmas quotes that came from her Christmas letters. Tell us about those, first of all, and then if you would share a few of those
Okay.
with us.
Yes.
Such as the Yankee Swamp and other.
Right. And I went through trying to find the ones that would be appropriate. She loved to collect malaprops, basically, misunderstandings or miswritings of her students. Occasionally, a note with a malaprop from a parent came through as well. And so she would save those throughout the school year, and in her Christmas letters, she would put a whole list of the ones that she had collected that year. The book shows only a fraction of what I had. But the reason that I put them in between the stories of friends and family, which is another chapter in the book, was because these stories sometimes were very touching and very sad, and many times were also very light. But I wanted to lighten up the mood by having the quotes in there and give people something to laugh about. Because now whenever I meet somebody who had known Michelle, they say, we really miss the Christmas letters. And I think it's more because of the quotes than because of the information that was in there. In 2003, these were the quotes that she gathered. At Christmas, our families have a Yankee swamp. The orange juice goes bad when it nears its exploration date. The next one, I tried to get my point across without making a scent of starting a fight, and scent is S-C-E-N-T. I'm not quite sure what they meant by that one. The children were afraid to catch wisteria because it's a bad disease. There was a period of evasion between me and my homework last night. The moral to this paper is that life doesn't always go your way, but it does in the movies. And the stock market has a bull market and a cow market.
It's amazing what kids come up with.
And that wasn't the end. They went on every year. I went back to her letters and pick them out so we'd have enough to make people laugh in the book.
Nice.
Did she always collect these at home and share them with you as they were going along, or?
No, I got the Christmas letter the same as everybody else, so I didn't see them until then, unless one particularly struck her and she had to share it.
Yeah. Now, as you were talking about organizing the book, I saw
Yes.
she apparently, and she had written a poem about you, and she did mention something about how you like to organize things.
Yes.
Yes.
I can relate to that.
There was
My
a
kids
fair
say-
amount of teasing in our home.
It sounds like it. Both you and your husband got teased a fair amount.
Yes, and she could do her share too. She could keep up with the best of them.
He jumped topics all the time, right? That's what she would, one of the things she would say about him. Yeah.
Yes, a couple of her writings were for our birthday parties, and she did a good job roasting both him and me.
Nice. As children should do.
That's right.
You mentioned before that "Live with courage, lead with hope" was a quote that she used to use. Is that her? Where did she come up with that from? Do you know?
It wasn't until maybe the last few years of her life, and she, the Purple Ribbon Run was a race that was started in the beginning of her teaching career when she taught at a Catholic school in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And when she went in for her first surgery, the students collected money to donate to Mass General in her name, which began a fund that we've continued, and it supports research at Mass General just for thymoma, which is very heartening to us. We met with a researcher recently, and she was telling us that they're finally starting to make some inroads. It's so rare that it's very hard to get that first notch in there to make things happen. And so the students at Trinity High School also organized a road race, and the funds that they made on the road race were donated to Mass General. So after that, when she started teaching at Bow High School, one of her students heard about this and decided to organize a race that they called the Purple Ribbon Run. And that's been going on now. We're coming up on about the 15th or 16th year of the Purple Ribbon Run. Now it's run on Mother's Day every year at Bow High School, and it starts early enough in the morning that everyone can get home for the Mother's Day celebration.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. My favorite part of the book was her graduation speech when she talks about this stained glass window. And it was just such a beautiful analogy. Would you like to read that section for us?
Yes, I will. She went and graduated from St. Anselm College and was selected to give the commencement address. And the quote that Carol's talking about starts, "A while ago, as I was talking to a friend about my 4 years here as a student at St. Anselm College, an interesting thought came to mind. The time spent here, if interpreted artistically, would end up looking quite a bit like the stained glass windows of the Abbey Church, with a myriad of pieces all joined to form a harmonious blend of color and shape. Some colors would represent classes ranging from the famed freshman humanities to the infamous senior English seminar, from philosophy to theology, and from modern language to ancient history. The patchwork would include the friends we've made who come from Massachusetts, come from as far away as Ireland and France, and from as close by as Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York. But it could never capture the radiant personalities with which we've become so closely linked. There would be panels depicting opportunities gained through classroom studies, athletic competition, theatrical events, and travel experiences. Only at an institution of the liberal arts would a mélange like this be possible. The education we've received at St. Anselm has given us all not only new windows and insight into our lives, but it has also tinted the windows with values, with goals, with achievement, and with beauty."
absolutely beautiful. We'd like to also mention that ThymomaHope.org is Michelle's website, and it has information about the run and about this rare form of cancer on it.
And we also want to tell people, of course, where they can get this book. It's on Amazon, correct?
It's on Amazon.
And also the website?
And yes, they can't get it through our website, but Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Great. It's an important thing to read.
Great. Yeah.
And especially because you really, I said this to you before, but you really feel, having, of course, not known Michelle, who she is to everyone in this book just by reading it. She jumps from these pages, and it's just beautifully done.
Thank you very much.
I mean, yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us, Judy. It's just been absolutely a pleasure, and it's so nice to be able to talk about such a beautiful book and such a beautiful person.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Josh, my illustrious co-host as always.
Absolutely. We want to thank you all for joining us for Novel Ideas. Until the next time.